All right. Hello, everybody, to another episode of our weekly speaker series for the upcoming Paranormal Research Symposium. My name is Alex Matsuo, and I am the founder and the director of the Association of Paranormal Study, which is the group that is putting on the symposium. And I am also symposium chair for this year. So I'm really excited about this series. So if this is your first time tuning in, we do these weekly speaker series every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, leading up to the Paranormal Research Symposium, which will be taking place on Saturday, August 23rd, 2025, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And in these weekly interviews, you'll get an inside look at some of our really knowledgeable and brilliant presenters who will be part of the symposium this year. And the symposium is brought to you by Ghostly Images of Gettysburg, Ghosted Magazine, Gold Dust Publishing, and Lauren Hauntz. So tonight we got a lineup of not just one, not just two, but three speakers tonight. It's going to be a really good show. So we're going to have Glennie Sewell up for tonight's series, as well as Michael John Angus, as well as John Griffin II. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of who these guys are. So during the year, Glennie spends his time between Montpelier, and hopefully I'm saying that right, this is going great, and Burlington, Vermont. And he has investigated the paranormal since 2009. So long running track record there. And he runs a small paranormal education channel, which y'all should definitely check out. It is called Messenger Guardians Paranormal Investigation Studios, aka Messenger Guardians Institute. Glennie received his MFA from Goddard College in 2016 with a thesis that researched consciousness literature as a paradigm shift. So definitely would love to read that, serving as the basis for his completed unpublished MFA creative novel, Guardians of Forever Earth Gone. So he continues to teach world literature online for Troy University, and Glennie is currently working on his PhD in Transformative Studies through the California Institute of Integral Studies, focusing on the Imaginal and Liminal Realities in the personal narratives of lived paranormal experiences. So Glennie's legit. When I read Glennie's abstract, I was like, yes, please. So Michael John Angus. Michael John Angus is a seasoned career firefighter and EMT with over 30 years of dedicated service, offering a unique perspective on both the physical and emotional toll of his profession. In addition to his work in emergency services, Michael is an accomplished paranormal investigator, author, and researcher. And Michael's work with Beacon TV has produced thought-provoking content that brings to light the stories and experiences that blur the lines between the physical and the spiritual. And as a speaker, Michael brings a rare combination of scientific inquiry and real-world experiences to his discussions, offering compelling insights into how the dead leave their imprint on the living. And finally, we have John Griffin II. John Griffin II is a paranormal investigator and researcher. He is also the leader of the paranormal team called Uni Research. Hopefully I said that right, John, which focuses on attempting to understand the physics of spiritual activity through experiments, data collection, and trend identification, as well as utilizing unconventional methods. In addition, due to John's work, he has been referred to as a paranormal scientist by professor and scientist Dr. John Foldy of the New York State University at Albany prior to his passing. John has been featured on My Ghost Story, Caught on Camera, Paranormal Survivor, Paranormal 111, 911, Death Walker, Dark Echoes Paranormal, and is producing a series called Project Apparition Hall. John has years of experience with data collection and analysis through his work as the head of the Training and Intelligence Division for a Level Trauma Center, which worked closely with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. He has since applied much of his knowledge and methods to research and investigate paranormal activity. Wow. So tonight we have quite a lineup. Oh my gosh. So, and we already have our first comment too coming in. John Michael is in the house tonight. So this is an interactive show. We have an amazing lineup of our speakers tonight, as I just read in their bios. Holy cow. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from. Last week, we had people coming in from North Carolina, from across the pond. We had a lot of people tuning in from all over the country and even the world. So feel free to let us know where you're watching from. So without further ado, because I know y'all don't want to hear me talk all night, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our esteemed lineup of speakers. So,
Hello.
hello,
How's it going?
Glennie.
Good.
Hello, Glennie, Mike, and John.
Good
How y'all
evening.
doing tonight?
Oh, good.
Good.
Real good.
Good.
John, I thought I recognized you from something. So yeah, one of the paranormal witness. No, I'm sorry, paranormal 911 stories. I was helped advise get one of those stories on there when it all first started, and but I religiously watched it. So I'm like, oh, I keep thinking I've seen his face somewhere. So yes, that's cool.
Nice.
Is that still on?
I don't
Is
know.
it some production? Are they doing any of that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not
I haven't
sure.
seen it in a while.
I mean,
I haven't seen it in a while.
Big networks cut up mostly all paranormal stuff. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Well. There was the great, almost want to say the great
Yes.
purge of paranormal entertainment in the mainstream networks. My goodness.
Yeah, thanks to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I know, right? Let's see. And then we have, got another one. Oh, Debbie. Debbie's tuning in originally from England, but living in Florida.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi,
Hey,
Debbie.
I know Debbie quite well.
And then we have North Carolina. Yeah. Glennie, so far you got connections to two of the people in the chat.
Yeah.
I know. I'm in London during the summers, which is where I am now, and I lived in Western North Carolina for 13 years in the Asheville area and Cullowhee and those places. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I am in Virginia, DC area, and with this heat right now, I wish I was in London.
No, you don't, because the heat is actually starting to ratchet up here, off and on.
Ooh.
And it's threatening to go up to where it is now in the U.S. So,
oh gosh,
where do you live at in Virginia?
Oh, I live in Arlington, so I'm just across from DC.
Okay, I was born in Alexandria, Fairfax County.
I know exactly where that is.
I worked in Montgomery County, Maryland for a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Small
near
world.
Bethesda. Yeah, see, at all. Big world, but small.
And I'm from Maryland originally. My family's there.
Wow.
What part?
Well, I was born on the Eastern Shore, but mostly Central Maryland, Anne Arundel County, Prince George's County.
Okay, yeah.
And part of the Eastern Shore as well, Queen Anne's County as well.
Okay.
Nice.
Sweet. See, there's all that connection. People don't realize.
And of course, Vermont. If anybody logs in tonight, that's where I live during the year. So
open call for people in Vermont. Make your presence known. Nice. All right. Yeah. Well, wonderful. So I know I just did a lot of reading of your bios. I mean, y'all have such impressive credentials. But if you don't mind, take a moment, tell us how you got to where you are today in your journeys and, the study of the paranormal and whatnot. And let's start with Mike.
Hey, I'm glad you asked. So you've read my bio, and hopefully some people heard it. If not, a real quick summary of and I've been in my profession over 30 years as a firefighter EMT. So you can just imagine what all that entails. But so through those years, I was never really into the paranormal. I mean, I knew something existed, and I had a lot of interactions that made me think, what's on the other side. But it took me a long time being exposed to many situations and that I was placed in, good or bad, to realize that I was meant to be there, and there was always something more to it for me. And we'll talk about this more as, when it comes to the event. But I was never always 100% into what I am to now, as far as when it took me a long time for the light switch to come on, something was reaching out to me, and it took a few events to realize that this is the path I needed to follow. And so that's where I'm at with it today, with all my past leading up to this, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Glennie.
Well, it's always a hard place to start. I'd always had some sort of interest in what ultimately would be known as the paranormal. I had always had some idea when ever since I was much younger, but where I started reading Edgar Casey materials, Mary Summerrain, and just built up, and then around 2011 I had an NDE. Um, a pretty major one that I came back from, and my biggest problem with that, and that's actually I've talked about it on other radio interviews before that are posted somewhere. I think my channel might have it posted, but my biggest problem is that I came back from that, and I originally didn't want to. So I was really displeased when I ended up waking up from that event. But I got confirmation with the person who was with me that it most certainly did happen. So, but stopped breathing, color change, the appearance of gray death kind of thing. But came back from that, and then it just became a much stronger need for me to help others through those kind of events, through those kind of especially for those who might feel like they have certain abilities in that area, and helping train them and confer with them and let them know that there is an ear willing to hear and willing to believe them and their stories. It's not about casting doubt or dispersions on someone just because we might not have walked their particular footsteps. So over time, I got it. That's what led me really ultimately do my MFA work, in the changing words of literature, and the changing and the paradigm shift, which really started back in the 19th century. So it started quite some time ago with the spiritualist movement, as you may already know. William Blake as an artist, just so many people that were involved, and a lot of women artists, people who were writers, were Catherine Crowe was early 19th century. These people, what you know who I'm talking about, they were all involved, and there are some of these authors are on that canon list of literature, but they were truly involved. It's just truly amazing what we have out of that. Over time, I started doing work on bringing that literature and all that wording change and all that paradigm shift to the forefront. Ultimately, that would lead really me into being interested in people's personal experiences with the anomalous events, the paranormal, and how understanding how that's worked in their lives, whether they've hidden it away from people because they're ashamed or don't want people thinking they're crazy and all these things, how that's built reality around them, because reality takes the shape of our own internal hopes, fears. There's nothing we can hide from ourselves, no matter how much we try. So how it builds around it, and that's what I'm working on with the PhD for CIS. So yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, you spoke my love language when you said Catherine Crowe. So I'm a big Catherine Crowe fan.
Yes,
Big
so
fan.
am I.
Nice. All right, John.
Just to kind of to keep it brief, because it's a long history. I experienced started beginning at the age of 4. I was experienced my first paranormal activity, so to speak, and it just continued. It just continued from there. But the main thing that got me into it, into the actual research itself, was the social aspect that both myself and my brother had experienced over the years. We saw the impact that the haunting had on us. We felt we could. I mean, we couldn't talk about it. Um, there was no way for us to prove what we were going through, so it just it sent us into both of us into early depression. So we were in very severe depression. It was age 16 that I finally, formally, so to speak, entered the paranormal field, and uh, I started off doing the traditional stuff, setting up the cameras, equipment, doing EVP sessions, not really pushing it too far. And at this point, well, not 16, but it would be about 4 or 5 years later, I would enter the security field, where I would start learning more about data collection and such, as well as other things. But uh, there was one point, there was a major turning point for me on a research portion where somebody said, because I was talking about, have we tried doing data? Have we tried, collecting data, developing hypotheses, and identifying trends and such? And there was someone I spoke to that said, that was from the field, that said that, John, that's a waste of time. Why would you do that? That's stupid. Um, there's no point. So I was like, well, so I take it you've tried it then. And he said, there is no point. You cannot prove this. So I literally just went challenge accepted. And so that caused me to start really go into the data portion of it. But I started learning from different people about knowledge that I was missing from doing different types of how to collect and all the different types of bias and subconscious bias and such. So I could say that over the years, it's been quite the evolution. But that's pretty much fast forward. That's where I am right now. I ended up doing a project that involved that we did identify a trend in, and at that point, I felt that I was on the right path from there.
Nice. Awesome. You kept that brief. Good. Yeah, that was awesome, John.
I
Yeah.
Skipped a few
Yeah.
years in between.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with a question for all three of you. And I'll take volunteers who wants to take it on first, but this is a subject that I've always been interested in. And the three of you have this thread in common. So what role do you think trauma plays in paranormal encounters, either as a trigger or as part of a lingering energy?
I can try and take that one on first. Um, Trauma has been an extraordinarily careful subject for me because I'm not a psychologist, trained or otherwise, but psychology does appear or tries to appear in my work. I've written about, in my work, I've written about trauma causing, at times, causing a trigger for abilities to turn on. Some things turn off also with trauma, but not only does trauma trigger things to start happening, but I honestly think that trauma helps build a harsher conception of reality around the person as well, rightfully so, because of the traumatic events in their lives. It's going to cause a traumatic projection of reality, and that is no less true and no less valid. But and it's a very careful line to walk when teaching people about their possible abilities and the things they've walked through, because the idea is really sometimes really to have someone who is trained in psychology or to be there, and when the person knows they might have to walk into memories and dig up things that have caused them great consternation, physical, emotional, spiritual, even. So I think trauma works as a massive trigger and siphoning event. One that can work as a weigher as well, the way weigh scales work. Um, yeah, trauma is massive, at least from the points of view that I've heard in the work I've done so far.
Nice. Hmm.
Yeah, I think with my line of work, and trauma encompasses a lot of things. Not the physical trauma, but other trauma that's the energy that's absorbed for those situations from that trauma, either by us or other people, uh, can really change a person over a long period of time, being exposed to it, that rush of energy, or that I was on a school shooting at Penn State in 1996, so you can imagine the energy that was in that small area and all the emotions and the trauma that was there, and how it changed people forever, even if they weren't the one injured or hurt or anything bad. Just being in that situation with that energy from that trauma, being exposed to it, I think, and that situation changed a lot of people. So I think Glennie was saying, it's such a big word and can encompass so much. And some of the situations I've been in and repeated exposure to it, I think has changed me and my thinking too. So I can imagine somebody that's been through a very traumatic event, whether it's mechanical or mental or something like that, is uh, can really change a person's outlook and how they are. I don't know about abilities and stuff like that. I've heard those stories before. No, people have had a situation that triggered something. We had a friend of mine from high school. I responded to a vehicle accident. He was in an accident, a serious accident, and after he healed, he got MS, and then ended up passing from that. But I've always had that in my brain, my mind, thinking that traumatic event caused a health issue or triggered that MS that was in his body that was dormant and triggered that. I mean, there's so much area that you could go with this, and I'll talk more about that at the event. Obviously, how it affects us and other people, and what it leads to. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
I kind of echo what everyone was saying about that. I've looked at it aside from my own traumas that I've experienced, and then other people's that I've dealt with that have gone through it, and I've seen the impacts when it comes down to even the hauntings. I've questioned. I don't really necessarily have correlating data to fully support it, so I don't want to speak on it as if I've got some massive super hidden fact. But the other side that I'm also looking at too is we're talking about the nature of consciousness, so to speak. Consciousness let's say the person another person who has experienced a traumatic situation has passed on, and let's say consciousness truly exists outside of the physical body. How does trauma transfer on that end? And then if we do something on this end, like a traumatic event occurs, and then you have a spiritual entity, their consciousness still exists in that area, and a traumatic event occurs, does that affect them? Bringing up past traumatic events from that specific individual, and then also things that could come back onto people who are still alive. So it's to me it's very complex on how trauma, how the energy surrounding that could be. Uh, I just went into a brain fart for a second.
See, it's affecting you.
Yeah, no, but no, it's
I'm
like
teasing you.
no, I'm good. Yeah, no, it's that it becomes very complex because we're heading into so many different directions that it'll take us down so many different paths. And for us in the paranormal field, we know that for us, it's going to take us down paths that generally aren't really considered.
Glennie, did you say you had a near-death experience?
Yes.
And that's not to interrupt, but I've had, not personally, I've been on incidents where people have had near-death experiences, and I had a guy tell me a story. Now, this is before iPhones and later. This was in the early 90s. But I'll get back to him, but we just had one at work. We had a lady jogging, collapsed, was in cardiac arrest. Now, how weird is this? Another jogger witnessed her collapse, ran over to her, and was carrying a pocket mask and began CPR. And I'm like, if that's not like some type of spiritual intervention or something looking out for you, I don't know what is. But I never got a chance to. I want to interview her if she would allow me to see what she experienced, and not to go down another rabbit hole. But I had a person years ago that had an experience that I was on scene. We defibrillated the person. They come back to life, and the guy was mad. He said, I was trying to tell you guys not to shock me because that wasn't even going to hurt, but I couldn't. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, but you couldn't hear me. He literally was telling us what we were doing in the room. He watched everything we did. Yeah. So I don't know if you ever experienced anything like that or not, but I mean, even a situation like that, can trigger, like you were saying, can trigger so much to a person. Like it's like sometimes like a reset, if that makes sense, or like an update. You updated your iPhone, you updated your brain. Now this is
Right.
working. So, but yeah,
My
go ahead.
my experience was, like I say, without going too many details about it, my experience was almost psychologically forced way back when it happened, because I was under such massive amounts of psychological pressure that I just didn't care. Now, I wasn't going to do anything physically to myself. That's not a
Right.
thing. But in some ways, it felt like it was almost the same, because I simply willed it, because I was in that bad a shape. Not physically, not due to any kind of chemical, no alcoholism, no drugs, anything like that. It was purely psychological. It was that bad.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember walking away, just feeling comfortable and walking away. And then the other person who was with me, I heard that person's voice call out, and before I knew it, I had apparently returned, and was so desperately unhappy because I wanted to not come back. I mean, that has changed since, of
No, I
course.
get it.
I
I get
clearly
it.
I clearly had a massive more things to do. So,
Right.
and that was that was now almost 15 years ago. So, almost 14 years. So yeah, it, it happened to me. It was less of an accident and more of, I'm ready to just leave, to hell
Yeah.
with it, kind of
Right.
thing. And so, and then a second event occurred, but it was not really. It's strange. It's on my YouTube channel. It's not an NDE, and it was about 13, 12 or 13 years ago, where I was called over to help with literally help, calm people down who were being brought to the other side, who didn't know where they were, and they needed people to come and help. And so they decided to call me over in such a way as to make it look like I was sleeping in a room when they came to get me, and said, "Hey, we got someone for you," and they handed me a clipboard as if I knew what to do, which I did. It was really strange, and said, "Okay, can you go to these people and help with them, and then stay with their children, and go to check to make sure they're okay, they don't realize where they are." And it was just like this way station, and it's like I said, it's on my channel, and I also wrote about it. And it really took place. It was a massive lucid event, and that was the and I actually left the facility thinking I'd go around. It was on a farm with a mountain, and I made fun of the whole scene because it was so tropey. But then, um insects started coming around my feet when I left the facility, and I just back up onto the porch of the facility. And the friend that I told, John, was the friend that I helped, get on to Paranormal 911. She had told me, she says, well, in certain cultures, insects on bare feet, because my feet were bare, she says they usually will go after someone who is about to leave, and it's not their time, and they'll force you to reverse back to wherever it was you were located. And that's essentially what happened, and I didn't even think of it that way. And there were other
Uh-huh.
events that happened outside too that I saw. But after I was done helping people, I was just trying to sit outside the facility, almost like you would sit out to take a smoke, and wait it out. And then it faded, ended, and and when I woke back up, I was in San Francisco. So, because that's where I was at the time when this happened. So,
Interesting.
Wow.
Hmm. Wow.
I didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole. I just that
Oh,
I
you're
knew
good.
he had talked about it, and
no, that's just amazing. You just triggered it in me to tell you.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
wasn't going to
like
talk
that. That's
about
what
that.
see how stuff
Love it.
works. Yeah.
Love it. Let's see. We got a question from Debbie. John, have you thought about visiting the old Bleckley County Jail?
The reason she asked is I run that.
She had left this one too. Yeah. Yeah.
I just read the comment. I'm like, oh, she's been there, but yeah, I can't get enough of it, enough of what I do. So I run a jail on the side, because I need more of it, But that's what she's asking. It's in Georgia. I'm not sure where you're at, John. I maybe didn't hear where you were from, but
Well, I don't have. I'm not interested in that respect because I'm hearing all this traveling stuff. I moved here. I was born in New York State, and get this, I moved 30 minutes away from my childhood home in New York State.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
right.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. No. The old. Yeah. I and Debbie's actually. We just actually met up at Wildwood Sanitarium for the first
Mhm.
time.
Nice.
So we finally got to research together, myself and her group, and so I mean it's definitely a place I'd be interested in
Yeah.
in checking out. I know there's a bunch of areas out that way that I want to
Yeah.
get to.
And I was fortunate to, we talk about things happening for a reason and things line up. And I was fortunate that this fell into my lap,
Mhm.
for me to continue to do more research. And I can go there anytime I want to
Yeah.
and interact and use whatever devices I want or collect data or whatever it is I can do. So it's really right down the street. And I'm
That's
there,
amazing.
not all the time, but I'm there a fair amount of time. It's an old jail, built 1915. So,
Whew.
yeah.
I was like, you're lucky. Like the play. Well, Wildwood Sanitarium. Our team sponsors that place, and but for me, it's 5 hours away, 5 hours back.
Oh,
All the places, I swear, all the great places are hours away from me. It
Mm.
never fails. But then I hear down the street, I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah, I moved 6 hours away from my home location, so I feel that pretty hard. So, nice. All right, great. I just want to let everyone know, just remind everyone, yes, this is an interactive show, so if you would like to drop a question in for any of our panelists this evening, please feel free to do so. Y'all are getting a lot of love in the chat, which is awesome. And yeah, so I have one more question that's going to be the group question. If you could see a major shift in how society views the paranormal, what would it be? And what's getting in the way?
Just like the general public.
I'd say, yeah, like general
Not.
society, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big question because not everybody believes or wants to believe or cares about it. I guess to a point. I have a lot of people ask me questions, because they know that I, on Facebook that I do this, and of course that I'm bombarded, and people tell me their situations and stuff. But I think, doing the research, trying to collect the data and understand it more, and come up with answers, more scientific things, and not just did you hear that or show somebody a blurry picture, that kind of stuff. And I get all that, but I know when I do all my stuff and working with ITC and trying to communicate and form some type of data or research that's measurable, I think will definitely, when you start presenting facts, you always have your non-believers, but if you start, I guess if you can present facts in this area, or, like John, that person come to you and said, hey, you're a fool if you try to do this. And, well, have you tried it? No. I hear that all the time about stuff. So
Mhm.
I think if you go down that road and be factual and honest and debunk stuff and present stuff that you think is something, or you have something to back it, I think a lot more people would follow or understand it more. If that's what you were looking for as far as answering the question.
That works. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I would be certainly willing to back that up, Mike.
Yeah.
Also, there's this understanding that not everything can be reproducible or reducible in a lab. It just, the paranormal is one of those things that just can't always be. People can reproduce some effects, but the originating events can't be reproduced. If
Mm-mm.
someone says, "Oh, I can make your reproduce and make your hair stand up on your neck like you can a nose," I said, "Yeah, you could, but but the originating event you can't reproduce. You can
Mm-hmm.
only reproduce the effect. So even material science has its limit." and is tied or bound to three-dimensional space, when our subject matter goes well past three-dimensional states, goes into quantum states, when you can get um, I can't remember which one, if it was Einstein or who it was, said spooky action at a distance. And Einstein did not like quantum science, best I know. He might have by the time he passed. I don't know. I wasn't really sure of it, but they would make those kind of comments because they weren't sure what to think of non-local states, and um, where a extraordinary a molecule on this side of the universe can spin. You can split it in half, and its other half is on the other side of the universe, and they can both spin at almost exactly the same instant and in the same direction. If the other one is moving, it's that kind of thing. It's just I can't say I can look it up and really understand it that way, but there's so much in the quantum states that we do not understand that does help build on these understandings, build on these beliefs and understandings. And people and I'm with it, people aren't required to believe it. They quite often they have to experience something. And I think when someone's a healthy skeptic, which means they're not there to debunk everything in life because they just can't be bothered with any kind of existence or anything greater than just themselves, but healthy skeptics who are willing to listen, willing to see, willing to bring in some data and go beyond. I like how Mike said, "Did you hear that? If you really want to annoy me and get my ire, keep doing that in one of these paranormal shows. Did you hear that? Well, no, I didn't hear, but how about you just move on? You know, it's that
Right.
kind of thing. And it's just I'm being a wise ass, but still,
No, right.
it gets me. It really bothers me. And to me, I don't always need it to be materially scientifically approvable, but I do need people to stop, back up, check their own thoughts, check their own conceptions, and make sure they're not bleeding into what's happening. And quite often you'll hear the term freaking myself out, freaking ourselves
Mm,
out. And quite often, a number of people, especially in YouTube, are starting to understand it. Because sometimes I'll be in the comments just going, "Stop freaking yourselves out. You're causing a third of the paranormal problems in that house by freaking out and feeding into whatever is there. You're just giving it the energy it needs, and
right.
you're causing that whole third or half of it. Quit freaking out. Someone who doesn't freak out doesn't really get too particularly and can go in places like that. Sometimes they can be interested. Sometimes they can hear something. Sometimes a door slams. It doesn't jar them. They're just like, oh, that's interesting. It's slamming doors. And, they stay calm because they need to filter. They need to make sure they're carefully
Right.
filtering things happening and not freaking themselves out. So that's Mike. That's why I was definitely got attached to your statement.
Yeah.
Definitely, and we can't
Uh,
prove everything, and not everything's reproducible.
no, you're
But
right.
or reduction of reductionism doesn't fit
Mm,
much of what we understand. But you are right. People need to calm down, to use, if the equipment fits and they can use it, good. They'll have something they can go back and analyze and synthesize and see whether or not it fits. Because I have that equipment too. So we all do that same thing. So yeah, I'm right along with you there. I just wanted to add another layer.
no, that's good. That's good. I always like to hear
Yeah. Right.
it. John has the
Yeah.
best for last.
Yes, indeed.
it, it kind of falls back to what I had to the mindset that I had to go change in mindset that I had to go through when I was doing the training and intelligence division. Um, with that, I mean, we dealt with different beliefs, um, different diverse topics, diverse mindsets, and of course, it got into being that it was security and such. It was, we also dealt with the political mindset. So we're dealing with all these hot topics that people just get really passionate about and they see red. Uh, the
Yeah.
problem the problem with the intelligence portion of it is I can't see red. I'm not allowed to. And that was a tough transition. I had to change and go into a state of neutrality. And so, and trust me, that took so much effort. And no one's ever 100% neutral. But
No.
to take that and realize that going into the paranormal with it, trying to take that attitude into it, that's what's ultimately helped with the research that we've been doing, and allowing for our team, for the UNI research team, to speak with other people that have differing opinions, you know, openly look at the data and such. And I feel like for society, um, once they when they see something more tangible, when they see the open-mindedness, and that, it's not just going into a belief, it's, you know there's credible research going on, it'll open that up. But the other part of that is that with and I kind of want to I know this may seem random, but one of the questions I've asked, in regards to if spirits exist, hypothetically, if ghosts exist, they supposedly can do all these things, such as move doors, insert themselves into dreams, uh, you know, possess, allegedly, speak using without a physical body, appearing, disappearing. They could do supposedly all these different things. The question I have to ask is, what else can they do if those are actually true, if any of them are true? And how does that impact society in general? Because in that case, the way I see it is that, um, there could be some uh, significant consequences. We may have things that are going on that end that we don't know is affecting us from here, and vice versa. We don't know that. How there's again, it's a very, I could go on for hours about this one. That's actually, it's funny, because Alex, like, the question that you asked, I kind of asked a similar question to some people on, if if I asked people, if the paranormal were to be, or ghosts were to be proven, or spirit realm, whatever, was proven real tomorrow, how would society change? How would governments change? How would the laws change? How would psychology change? How would the medical field change? How would all this stuff change? Um, so I think with the more that we progress with this research, I know there's going to be the pushback. There's always that denial stage, and we as researchers have to expect that. And just like you brought up, Glennie, or either Mike or Glennie, I apologize,
That's all
about
right.
the person that disagreed with the whole statistics, that it was dumb. I had to push past it. There was that denial stage. Oh, well, how dare you try that? And
Mm.
so we know at first, once we start coming across things, society is not going to be happy with us. But then eventually there goes to that acceptance, not 100% with everybody. But that's what I would like to see from society. I would like to see that it opens up. I would like to see that, you know, people understand these, all these different experiences. There's reasons why people are coming to different conclusions, also ultimately have these different beliefs, take these different paths, and find a way to find a common ground to come together, so that we can ultimately figure this out, and come to a conclusion that ultimately doesn't lead to people going after each other for this stuff.
Nice. Y'all have made tonight's stream really easy to do. I just ask a question. It's like, and go. Love it. Let's see. We got a couple comments from the chat. John Michael did. He actually commented, Glennie, on Einstein. Einstein actually contributed to quantum mechanics. He just wasn't a fan of that's a big word for me, probabilistic nature of it. But since modern science derives from skepticism, that's why he was skeptical. And then the second part of that was the probabilistic part wasn't really solidified till after he was out of the game.
Yeah. Thank that was a John Michael for that.
Yeah.
I actually read that in the chat along the side screen. So yeah, I'd
Nice.
already read it and shook my head. So I was really appreciative of you typing that. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So, next question. So this question, actually, I want to go ahead and have John start off with this one. Can you give us some insight on what your presentation for the symposium will be about?
Sure. So it's the title for it is Project Apparition Hall Phase 1, and essentially the we've been focusing on the understanding the manifestation process as well as the composition surrounding spiritual entities. Again, hypothetically, if they are real. And basically, we've made some potential breakthroughs within the study of apparitions. And we're going to do a little bit of a build up. We're going to kind of show what kind of led up to that, a short version of that, because we were making progress with audio documentation, but it ceased. We ended up hitting a brick wall, and we ended up having to look. And it was back when my brother was alive. We were looking at each other like, well, the only way we could probably figure this out is through apparitions. And of course, with apparitions, we're talking about one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to document. So we're finding ways to be able to essentially not reproduce, but assist them on their end, and trying to understand how they essentially put themselves together, documenting phases from the starting point for where they begin their manifestation, their original form, to when we essentially see them. So that's a short version of that.
Love it.
Well, I hope to get the chance to see that. As we're not presenting at the same time, I'm going to be cross if that's the case. I would
Noted.
love to actually see that. I mean, I want to see all you guys is what I want to see, because I don't want to just go there, do my thing, and leave. What the hell's that? I want to actually go there and enjoy you all stuff. So I guess I can jump in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't want to give too much away, because the symposium's right around the corner practically. But I was thinking about previous psychical research, suggests that mystical and paranormal capacities seem to arise from a collectively generated interdimensional space of a coherent realm, like the imaginal realm, a realm in between our physical space and the other side. But it's a realm that seems to feed from our fears, our ideas, our wishes, our hopes, our nightmares. It feeds everything, and then returns it back to us. So the idea is my own ongoing research into consciousness development is through paranormal instruction, instructional knowledge. The idea is, for instance, this first part, what I want to do is a workshop where I collect stories from people who want to collect stories, no names, things like that. Are used, but collected to ultimately use in my own research, asking the question, for instance, could individual beliefs shape the existence of the liminal, transcendental, or paranormal world? Also, it's also known as the imaginal. There's several different kind of words for it, and people will have different ideas about it, but it's that same space, kind of like the 7,000 names of God thing. The second question is, if so, do powerful human co-creators like ourselves, of that quantum spiritual realm, conceptualize and construct collectively not just the material plane but spiritual realities via their own narratives, their own stories? Do we build not just our world? Do we help also build the other spiritual existences? And really, it's not that those are going to collecting those stories and parsing them with through to see what themes arise from the wording and what seems to be projected as a thought or an idea or a possible belief from people as a group even. But the hypothesis uses written and audio narratives experiences. We ethically collect them from participants at paranormal investigation instructional settings, which, like the symposium, we use the workshop to help guide participants in expressing their personal stories of paranormal experiences, assisting them in defining their own narratives and how that might affect their outer and inner realities. So we got materially, psychologically, spiritually powerful paranormal events can initiate self-exploration into the transpersonal creative power of psychical experiences and emerging abilities. So, and we just do that just by analyzing the narratives, the actual lived experiences that people are going through. And again, and then just using some sort of triangulation and rich data interpretation to lay out what kind of thoughts and ideas are coming from these stories. And it's a start. It doesn't answer anything really, but it gets us to start looking into not just this reality, but the other realities that may very well be out there, the interspace between this one and the other worlds, that imaginal space that's liminal or hidden, that we feed into, that feeds back to us like a copy machine, like Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with Gods many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when I read the first book of that, where whatever we think about ourselves, even about others, there's nothing judging back at us. There's just a copy machine feeding it back to us, because that's what we keep believing, keep saying, and keep doing until we don't do that anymore, until we change it. So it makes us fully responsible. So what is it we're fully responsible for? What's happening? And the only way we can really do that is by getting people to talk about their, especially specifically their anomalous experiences in life that they're so afraid to talk about, getting that first step out there and getting them to say, to understand, you're not going to be judged, you're not going to be thrown into some sort of psychological whiplash and thrown in with a psychiatrist on the side ready to throw meds at you. None of that nonsense. This is all to get people to open up this world that we're trying to change, that we spoke about earlier. Get people to open up and not feel like they're threatened, and then the world starts to actually change when they realize there's more going on with our lives, with how we act with each other worlds, other countries, other ideas, other social systems, other political systems. They're all enmeshed with each other. They're not separate little things happening out in the world while we're here snug in front of a screen. It's all combined. And really, to see that, look at the narratives that are being hidden, look at the stories, and see where those commonalities, even where those differences are. If any of that makes sense.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be a part of an event that I'm just not telling spooky stories. You know, it's nice to actually present something that people can take something away with them. And you know, you started with the first question about the trauma and all those type of situations, and then I think John talked about how the spirits can do all these things, and it sort of leads into what my presentation is. You know, the mark of the dead, and how and if those high energy, low energy, repeated events that or other people that are exposed to actually marks us, and does that mark allow communications between us and the spiritual world easier? Um, if all this stuff, like I'm just trying to think. Just lost my train of thought. See, I need to drink what he's drinking.
I'm not drinking anything. I'm innocent.
But yeah, so
it's just water or root
yeah.
beer or whatever.
But over the years, talking to other firefighters, police officers, EMTs that are exposed to these events, either a short period of time, long period of time, is that energy, that trauma, is it absorbed into us, and how it affects us, and the outcome of that. You know, after years of that, I always get into fire hazmat stuff, but time, weight, average, how much of this can you take in before something actually changes and affects you? And I've seen it firsthand. You know, it leads to awful things and terrible things in people's lives that they don't realize that they are changing because of this. You know, whether it's addiction, abuse, whatever, whatever it is. So a lot of what I'm studying and trying to gather is information on those repeated exposures and how it leads to PTSD and other bad things in our lives. And obviously, collecting the data from all that, and trying to come up with some answers to see if how this can change, if it can change. And I think a lot has over the years. There's been crisis intervention teams now we have access to. The masculine side. I'm 51 years old. I was taught, as a man, you don't show emotion, you don't do this, you don't do that. It shows weakness and stuff like that. And I still see it to this day, in my line of work, and probably other lines of work too. But that's another rabbit hole we can get down. But yeah, I think mine, like I said, the topic Mark of the Dead pretty much speaks for itself. If they can affect us, John, like you were saying, if they can do all this stuff, can they have that lasting effect on us, and cause things to be chaotic in our lives? So
Oh yes.
yeah.
I want to see you guys. I swear I want to see you all.
You'll get bored.
Oh my goodness. No, I won't. What are you talking about? This is consciousness studies at its deepest.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
it's fresh. That's how I tell people, I deal with fresh death. I know it sounds awful, but I mean, that's one of my biggest things that I want to really try to study. I'm having a hard time having that chance to do that, where yes, I see and deal with death and there right when it happens, but I can't professionally investigate,
No.
at a crime scene or a death scene or someone's home. So I've been trying to work on other projects where I'm running in a large city with a coroner or a medical examiner's office, and going to a scene where a fatality has happened and asking questions and recording it to see if that connection over time fades away. Does that make sense? Like if they can communicate, residual. If they can communicate now and tell me what's going on after time, does that slowly, that bridge that binds the gap get shorter and shorter, where they can't communicate as much? I don't know, but it's hard to get a city or a medical examiner's office to allow me to do that, but I'm working it, hopefully.
You never
But
know.
you have to work. You have to go somewhere where unfortunately there's a lot of death. You have to go to bigger cities. And then you obviously you couldn't do crime scenes and stuff like that that's being investigated. But I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've
it's
only been
very
in
fun.
one medical examiner's. Yeah, I've only been in one medical examiner's office, or their place where they do where they do up the bodies and
Right.
And it was quite literally down a dark hall on the bottom floor of the hospital, and fading like Stephen King lights down there.
Why is that?
I'm being a little bit over dramatic. It was just no lights down that hall.
Yeah.
And then and almost no lights. And then you go down and it had to be unlocked to go in. And I'm like, wow, this is definitely in a very deserted location at the bottom of the hospital, out of reach of anybody else other than that. And it was one medical examiner. She was the only one in that part of the state.
And I'd love to talk to them too. I mean, I guarantee people have experiences over a period of time.
It's Burlington, Vermont. I don't know if she's still the same one, but because I was doing other stuff that wasn't involving that, which is why I was able to. A bunch of us went to visit that office. So yeah, you can. I mean, find out. I don't know them anymore. It's been years, but it's something to ask. You're going to find those who absolutely will let you do that. You just got to know where to find them.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen. I've seen videos for police officers with body cams where they'll catch stuff. They'll catch EVPs and they'll catch apparitions. That the guy in Texas that killed his wife and kids and put them in an oil barrel.
Oh yeah.
They were catching voices that were not any of the people in the room, and you could hear a little girl's voice. It's making the hair stand up on my neck all of a sudden. It's just, and you could clearly hear the wife's voice and the little girl's, and the film from the police was not doctored. But you could hear those
it was body
voices.
cam footage. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. There's something out there that's right away And if you can jump on that right away and maybe make that communication right away, you may get more answers, or it may be the same 10, 20 years from then. I don't know, but that's what I was, if they're reaching out already, to say whatever, we need to take the time to listen to that. And I mean, that's how, to present that, I don't know how you can debunk that,
Yeah.
It's,
That
and
is,
yeah.
that is wild.
I
Yeah.
wanted to. I saw this question right here. I don't know
Go ahead.
that someone just put out. But I know that what can be answered and how can they be answered in an objective and not subjective way. There's almost, I would say that it's very nearly impossible to not have some subjectivity in any of the work that even science does. Again, you're talking material science, because there's essentially a bottom layer of science that hasn't gotten out of its own way yet, where everything has to be reproducible and reducible and reproduced in a laboratory and objective, virtually no way. While your consciousness or your fragment of whatever greater consciousness there is part of this physical form, you have almost no way of being actually objective. You can only get so much objective, because a slither of that is still going to run through whatever ego there is. Even if it's a minor ego, it's going to run through that, and it's going to be subjective. So there's virtually no way to be 100% objective. You just can't be, until you leave this frame and this physical and this frame of reference. And even then, you're shocked into it to a point where you still can't be objective. You can only filter it through your own fragment of consciousness, until you can understand better. So are there minor things that can be proven on a material science level? Probably. And some things are. Again, we're talking about things that are not videos and audio that are not being, what is the word, manipulated. They're not being manipulated. You can actually hear it. It isn't pareidolia because the machine caught it. The actual technology caught it. Not the human eye, the technology caught it and recorded it. So therefore, it is not pareidolia. You can hear the little girl when you, quite often. What's so interesting, and I'm going to hold off after this because I want to do this at the symposium. But when you are not expecting to catch something and you catch it and hear it and see it, that's when it's some of the most valid stuff. It's like you weren't looking for it. You didn't have any projective concept to put out into reality about what it is, an expectation of what you should see. So yeah, I can't stand it when shows talk about a haunted location before they investigate. My thing is investigate the place, seal up your investigation, then talk to the owners and the people who run it about it, and say, okay, now that we've all talked about it, here's what we found.
Right. Makes sense.
That's the order to go in, instead of setting your mind up to project crap and do stuff. Yes, technology will still catch things will happen, but you don't want to set yourself up.
But you need viewers to pay those bills, right?
Oh yeah, that's exactly why they do it. I mean, that's a reality.
I know, I'm teasing you. I know.
No, but it is a reality.
Right,
That's totally a reality.
Yeah. People don't want that.
Good or bad. Yeah, they
Right.
don't want that. Good or bad, whatever.
All right.
All right. Ready for another hour?
I know, right? I feel like we could talk for another
Easy.
hour easily. Okay, well, we are a little bit past time, but I wanted to give our guests a chance to share like where people can find them and all that good stuff. So let's start with John. Where can people find you if they would like to learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Sure. Best bet would be through Facebook. That's where I'm most active. Go to my regular profile picture. You'll see this ugly mug on there. And there's also we're also got a new page that we launched called Project Apparition Hall. If you go look that up, be sure to type in the full thing, Project Apparition Hall, because there is another page called Project Apparition, and it's not us.
Nice. All right. Mike.
Yeah. All my social media is on Linktree. But if you go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that has a link to my link tree. If you just click on that, that's all my social accounts. You can just pick and choose what you want or delete whatever it is. But yeah, that's the best place. So Facebook, under my profile, is my link tree. So I'll just, and you can find all the fun stuff about me and what I do.
Nice. All right. And Glennie.
Okay, so Messenger Guardians Paranormal Investigation Studios and YouTube. I don't post so often because I'm working on a PhD. It does involve that, so from occasion I'll post, but it's not a big channel. But my other channels, my SoundCloud, which is where my other interviews that I've done over the years are located, and more details about the near-death experience and things like that I didn't really want to get into that much here. But only because everyone's got a life. But you can find me in largely in YouTube. Yes, there is a Facebook presence. I don't use it that much, but you can find it there. There is an Instagram presence, but again, not as much. And there used to be a Twitter presence, but I don't much use that anymore. So, but I would start using it only if people really needed me to. So, but YouTube's the biggest one. So, you can find me there. So,
Perfect. All
Sweet.
right. Nice. Thank you all for being here tonight and chatting. This was a really great conversation for me to lurk in on. So yeah, this was amazing. I know our viewers really enjoyed it. A lot of comments in the chat that I didn't even get to because it was just like going, just like going through. So
shout out to Ron Yacovetti. I saw your comment about thank you. I think you said something that I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Nice. Yeah.
He needs to go to bed.
Speaker. Yeah. It's as
Oh,
I say.
I'm not going to bed for a while. I'm going to have to wind down first.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
All right.
everybody, thank you all for being here this evening. Remember, you can get your tickets to the Paranormal Research Symposium, and you can see these lovely people in person for their presentations on August 23rd in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And yeah, so I'll go ahead and close the stream out for tonight, and we will be back next week, same time, same channel. Hope everyone